I remember hearing this mom talk about her son when she was potty training him, and they went into like a gas station bathroom or some sort of like restaurant bathroom, and it was smelly in there, and he immediately threw up. And I was like,
I mean, I feel that.
That's a big reaction, you know, like that's really poor olfactory modulation, you know?
But those are the differences we have to think about. If you're a very clean family and you keep like incense going in your bathroom at all times, or you always have a spray, maybe your bathroom is like always super warm.
Yeah.
It's quiet. You don't have an overhead fan. You know, you have to picture the bathrooms are a completely different experience at different people's houses. Yeah. You know, you've got strangers and things going on in public places. Like their smells might be different than what your kid has ever experienced before. So yeah, that's such a good point.
I think it's helpful to know, like, when a child has an adverse reaction like that or makes a comment about that, like, we have to validate that and be like, you're right, it is stinky. Like, what should we do about it? You know, what's our modification? Do you want to plug your nose? Do you want to chew some gum? Do you want to put your nose in your shirt? Do you want to go to a different bathroom? You know, and just like understanding and empathizing that, like, yeah, this is very different and this is gross, but we also need to go to the bathroom. Like it's not safe to not go to the bathroom and having those conversations too. But that's just the power of the sensory system, right?
For sure.
And that's why it's so important for the work that we do for these kids to be able to go to the bathroom in public places. Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
Hey there, welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla. We're so happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Amanda.
And I am an occupational therapy assistant specializing in sensory processing, primitive reflex integration, and I'm a mom of a almost 4-year-old and a 5-year-old.
And I am an occupational therapist specializing in early intervention, pediatric pelvic floor, school-based OT, have some experience working in clinics, just all the things.
All the things. So we're kind of going to have an open, honest conversation here today. Amanda shared this information with me not too long ago about some interesting bills that were in the process of being talked about, and we thought it would be a good time to have a conversation just from an OT's perspective because it relates to the pelvic floor and potty training. And why don't you give us a little background on the topic that we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I was scrolling a few weeks ago, of course.
Scrolling.
As I do on Facebook.
Just doing research.
Just doing some research, you know? And I came across this bill in the state of Kansas that is currently in the works. It has not been approved yet. I feel like it's being stalled a little bit because people are also feeling a little bit of unease about it. Yeah. But essentially, they're trying to propose that all kindergartners should be required to be toilet trained before entering kindergarten. There is one other state, Utah, that already has a bill and law in place for this, but I just feel like we need to have a conversation about what this means, what they're proposing. Yeah.
Well, and what was interesting too is as you were going through some of the comments, you were saying that everyone was like, well, yeah, kids should be potty trained by 5. Well, yeah, that makes sense. And I think from our perspective, we are, you know, are neutral, obviously, on the topic. But from an OT's perspective, like, what about our kiddos who can't? They don't have the pericare. They don't have the hygiene skills. They don't have the pelvic floor control. Like, are they just not allowed to go to kindergarten?
Yeah.
You know, where does that leave our clientele?
For sure. And I think like these bills, you know, they obviously have exceptions, right? For those special education classrooms, for students that have an IEP or a 504 plan. But I feel like my uncomfortability with this is more for our clients and kiddos that maybe don't have a medical diagnosis.
The ones who fall between the cracks.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They're not in an IEP. They're not in a 504. There's not necessarily anything that would be underlying that a doctor has to diagnose, but they might still be having accidents and things come up. And I'm like, okay, so are they going to be banned from school in these states?
Yeah. And, you know, it just got me thinking about this situation that I had heard of from a charter school. A kiddo couldn't, where they have uniforms, the kiddo in kindergarten couldn't undo his belt buckle. The teachers wouldn't help him because it was his job to undo his belt buckle, and he had a bowel movement accident in kindergarten, like the first week of kindergarten. And it's like, where's the line here? You know, like that's traumatic for a kiddo. Like, I remember having like an accident at daycare and feeling so shameful about it, you know, and to do that in kindergarten.
Yeah. And kindergarten is such a new environment. Like, I feel like by the end of kindergarten, most kids, like, they've got it, you know?
Yeah.
They're in their routines. They're comfortable with the teacher, their classmates, the bathroom, the toilet setup. But those first few weeks, that bathroom setup, the shape of the toilet, the height of it might be completely different than anything they've experienced before.
The volume of the flush.
The clothes that their parents buy for them, like those first day of school clothes. Like, you're like so excited as a parent.
Yes.
Yeah, you're like, oh, look at these cute outfits, not even thinking like, oh my gosh, my child is going to have to manage this completely on their own. There's not, and we know the schools are understaffed. You don't have the ability to potty train a classroom of kids, right?
Exactly.
And you shouldn't be required to as a teacher or a classroom staff support, but I mean, to support these children through these accidents that might come up, or these little incidences as they're just learning how to be new humans in the world.
And just get their feet wet.
Yeah.
And enter into this new environment, this new season.
Yeah.
And then to have something happen where it's like, oh, well, sorry, you don't get to go to school because of this, that, or the other.
Yeah. And then, you know, they're going to be behind for other, you know, these children are typically not behind either. You know, they might have some constipation going on, encopresis, which is, you know, a medical condition that can go along with chronic constipation, you know, some different things with bladder and bowel issues. But, you know, if we're not allowing them to go to school because of that, but they're on par with all of their other developmental milestones and school readiness and things, you know, how much further are they going to be set back in life based on a simple bill like this?
I do think that it is helpful to remember as a parent, like I am a parent of a child who is going to start kindergarten this fall.
Yeah.
So for me, my summer project already in my head, is potty training boot camp, and not potty training, but like hygiene boot camp, you know, like getting my 5-year-old consistent and confident in peri-care, you know, wiping and cleaning and clothing management, making sure that we have that in the generalized concept, but like in our house, but also in public places. And, you know, I think reminding parents to practice those skills. Like it doesn't just come naturally, you know, there's a lot of different ways. Maybe we can talk about that today. Some fun ways of helping kids learn how to wipe and how to get on and off the toilet and different modifications and folding the toilet paper, like you mentioned, using wet wipes and things like that. So maybe that's the direction that we need to go with this, just to give parents that confidence to actually practice this skill too.
Yeah. And I think that that's important. You know, I do genuinely think, you know, by 5, children should in general be potty trained. It's, and it does, you know, it's important for parents to be on top of that and to be practicing these skills, and it's important. So I think that this could be really helpful in just helping them be prepared. I don't know how I feel about the bills laying down a hard law on that.
I know.
But I think we can support parents if you're in a state where this is going to be something and you're worried about it.
Yeah.
Or not. Let's just support it.
Exactly. So as pediatric therapists who work with kids with sensory challenges and pelvic floor challenges and a variety of intellectual challenges, I think it's important to have that conversation of, you know, if we were working with these clients in the clinic setting or in the classroom setting, you know, what are those activities that we're going to work on in order to help them feel when they need to go to the bathroom? How are they going to clean themselves up? You know, work on those sequencing skills. And how can we support the parents who are listening if they are nervous about this impacting them and their child's success at school?
Yeah, I think that's going to be awesome. We were talking about recently, I think it was yesterday, we were just saying, a lot of our kiddos, it is so hard to manage toilet paper, and it's something completely new. So one of the like easy things I was thinking about is just like parents having conversations with the classroom teachers in general. When your kid is entering kindergarten, you're just, okay, if your kid is much more independent with using wet wipes, just pack them in their bag and let their teacher know, like, hey, if they're going to the bathroom, this is what they feel really comfortable with, at least when you're starting out, you know. It's going to help them be more independent, more cleanly when they're in there. So yeah, I feel like just having a conversation with your teacher can go so far at the beginning of the year of like what helps them and what you guys use at home that helps them.
And I also think about positioning on the toilet. I don't know, maybe you can tell me more about this, but are the toilets low enough at school where kids can get on and off of them and their feet are supported, or do we have to dangle?
In a lot of the daycares and preschools that I go into, they do have
They're
those
low.
super small toilets. But even with those, I've had to recommend to the daycare teachers, like, hey, I think you need to get a stool in the bathroom, because they'll set the kiddo up on there and they're kind of holding themselves up with their hands and trying not to fall in. And their feet are still dangling. So I do think having step stools, even for the small toilets, is important. A lot of our kiddos just are not tall enough yet, even for the small toilets. So I'm trying to think, in a lot of the kindergarten rooms do have toilets, their own bathroom in there. Like, they're not going to the elementary school hallway baths where you picture 6 or 7 stalls. They do typically have their own in those pre-K, the 4K room, and the kindergarten rooms.
That's cool.
I've just never went into it to see how tall
they are.
Toilet is. So maybe that's something I have to check out. But I will say,
go do some field research in the bathrooms.
I'm going to. I'm going to. And I mean, I think regardless, even if they are small, like, we need a little cover on top. We need some footstools, all the things that kids feel comfortable and supported. We need the knees above the hips. We want the feet flat and supported. Like, none of us adults are out here going to the bathroom with dangling feet.
No.
And we know how uncomfortable it is when you sit on one of those large, I think like a handicap toilet. I've been in a handicapped bathroom before, and the toilet's so tall, and I'm a short girly. So I'm like tiptoeing in there, and I'm like, this is not comfortable.
Not good form at all. No.
It's not.
So I think that would be helpful. And then I also think, one of my favorite, like we were talking about, ways of helping kids learn to practice wiping is peanut butter or almond butter, some sort of safe nut butter on a balloon. Whether you have one balloon, whether you have 2 balloons squeezed together to make some cheeks, and you're sitting the child on a tea stool, on a therapy ball, on a chair, whatever is simulating the toilet, and they're twisting and wiping and trying to clean it off, and then they have to fold the toilet paper so they don't get the peanut butter all over their hands. Like, all of that's hard to do.
And being aware, if they're practicing, they're reaching behind the therapy ball, wiping, you get to the front and you realize, oh, the toilet paper is dirty. Having a bin and showing them, like, okay, it's dirty. What do we do with it now? Okay, we have to throw that one away. We shouldn't reuse it because it's too dirty. Let's rip off a new one. And kind of just walking them through those steps. It seems second nature to us because we've been doing it for 30 years of our lives. But for these kiddos, this is brand new. They don't know. They're probably like, well, I don't know. Am I allowed to use more toilet paper, or am I only allowed to pull it off one time? So we've got to kind of coach them through it step by step and get into the nitty gritty of what our expectations are of them.
Exactly. And I think going along with that, with the step-by-step instructions, if you do have a child who's struggling with the sequencing or the step-by-step, putting up a visual of literally each step. You grab the toilet paper, you fold it, you reach behind, you wipe, you throw it in the toilet, you grab another one, and you show them the step-by-step. Then you get off and you pull your pants up and you wash your hands. Like, having that list of pictures, however is appropriate and that works for the kiddos, that is a game changer for so many kids.
So true. And I think reaching behind is really challenging. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and there's so many fun different treatment ideas just to practice that skill in general. But I love just getting little clothespins or chip clips and different things and putting them all down their lower back and on their pants so that they can practice reaching, grasping, and bringing them to the front. I think that's a super easy way for parents just to play a fun game, and kids, it's almost like, oh, it's hiding. You know?
But also think about if they don't have foot support. Imagine how uncomfortable that is and how hard that is to reach behind and grab those clothespins off your back. So think about that too. If they don't have their feet on the floor, that's going to be a lot harder versus if you give them something to have their feet supported on, they're going to be a lot more successful.
For sure. And scary. I mean, I can't imagine, like, their butts are so small, you know? They're about to fall in the toilet. They're trying to, like, hold themselves up, reach around. And I think about, like, their vestibular system, if they're, like, leaning all the way forward and down to, like, off balance themselves, and now they're tipping up and down. For some of our kiddos that struggle in those different sensory areas, there's so much to think about.
Exactly. Which I think it's why these are hard conversations to have, but I honestly think that's why we have to have them, because not a lot of people are talking about it and teaching the kids how to do these things. We just expect them to just learn naturally. And so for so many of the kids that we work with, it just doesn't come natural. It's not second nature. It's like fourth nature.
Literally so far down the line. They're not thinking about, how am I wiping? That's not on the top of their agenda for the day. It's getting their Spider-Man together, whatever they're thinking about.
Yes. So from a sensory standpoint, let's talk about some additional strategies that we see that kids struggle with when it comes to pelvic floor and potty training and all that.
Yeah. I feel like interoception is one of the big ones. It's that hidden sense that not a lot of people know about or talk about, but it is the number one thing that helps us know if we're hungry, if we're thirsty, the difference between the urge to pee versus poop. And a lot of kids struggle with it. It's something brand new to them that they're learning, whether they have sensory processing differences or needs or not. It's something we have to teach to kids. And we've got to slow down to learn it.
Exactly. Yeah. My favorite hack is always tapping into the vestibular system to get that increased interoception awareness. So especially if we have kiddos who are sensitive to movement and who are gravitationally insecure, they're the ones who probably have even poorer interoceptive processing and just awareness.
Yeah. And I love doing, I do body scans with a lot of my kids, but essentially that just means we just lay flat on our back and we close our eyes and I'm like, okay, can we wiggle our toes? Can we wiggle our fingers? What does our belly feel like? What do we hear going around us? So just trying to get kids grounded. Life is so fast-paced right now in the 21st century, and kids are just, I think, not aware of what's even going on in their mind, in their body. And so even just taking 1 minute every morning for them to slow down and notice, is their stomach grumbling right now? What does that mean? Is our digestive system moving? Are we hungry? What is going on
just
inside our body?
Mindfulness. Yeah. I love that. And I honestly don't feel like parents, I think most parents probably aren't taking the time to lay down on the floor in the morning, you know, and having those conversations and even just teaching them what that feeling in their stomach is connected to. We're like, oh, do you feel okay? They're like, yeah, but it's like, what does that mean?
And a lot of that. And kids, I feel like, don't notice until those signs are really, really big.
Yes.
And that's why it's always like, Mommy, I have to pee right now, now. And you're like, okay, but it's not that they were being lazy or they're being annoying. They just genuinely are not in tune enough with their bodies yet to recognize them when they're slowly creeping up like we can. And so they don't notice until it's like their bladder is so full that their urge is so strong.
Exactly. That's my daughter. Just all of a sudden it's an emergency and we have to get there immediately.
And it probably actually is an emergency. She's like, we don't get there right now. It's happening.
Not good. I also think about olfactory with the bathroom. A lot of kiddos, I remember hearing this mom talk about her son when she was potty training him, and they went into like a gas station bathroom or some sort of like restaurant bathroom, and it was smelly in there, and he immediately threw up. And I was like,
I feel that.
That's a big reaction, like that's really poor olfactory modulation,
But those are the differences we have to think about. If you're a very clean family and you keep like incense going in your bathroom at all times, or you always have a spray, maybe your bathroom is like always super warm. It's quiet. You don't have an overhead fan. You have to picture the bathrooms are a completely different experience at different people's houses. You've got strangers and things going on in public places. Like their smells might be different than what your kid has ever experienced before. So that's such a good point.
I think it's helpful to know, like, when a child has an adverse reaction like that or makes a comment about that, like, we have to validate that and be like, you're right, it is stinky. Like, what should we do about it? You know, what's our modification? Do you want to plug your nose? Do you want to chew some gum? Do you want to put your nose in your shirt? Do you want to go to a different bathroom? And just like understanding and empathizing that, like, this is very different and this is gross, but we also need to go to the bathroom. Like, it's not safe to not go to the bathroom and having those conversations too. But that's just the power of the sensory system, right? For sure. And that's why it's so important for the work that we do for these kids to be able to go to the bathroom in public places.
And for parents to not get so frustrated with it, but just being like, okay, wow, I guess this is probably something we need to talk about and work on at home, whether we need to buy a book, create a social story, do something so that the next time we go out, they're not throwing up every time that we go into a public place.
Exactly.
And equipping them with the accommodations. So maybe
not just avoiding it forever.
And practicing it before we get to school. Obviously, this is, mostly focused around school today, but, knowing those things about your kid and equipping their backpack with all the things they're going to need.
Yes.
And again, making sure their teacher and support staff know what accommodations you use at your house, and not just expecting the classroom teacher to know and remember every single child in their classroom's quirks and needs, and reminding them over and over again until the teacher knows your student. Because those first few months, they all kind of blend together.
Oh yeah. If you have 30 kids in a classroom, that's a lot to manage.
Yeah. And if your kid is the quiet one, sometimes again they slip through the cracks and they're just there, and the teacher's like, "What? I thought you were doing great." And then these things come up. So just remind your classroom staff. Teachers are so great, especially those kinder teachers. They know and they get it, but sometimes you just got to be on them.
True. I love that.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, from an OT's perspective, these bills that are being proposed on whether or not a child can go to school, if they're potty trained or not, what's the hot take?
Yeah, I think the core issue is that it's every child's right to access the public school system. And I think it becomes a really touchy, dangerous, gray area when we try to put a law in place that dictates who can access that and who can't based on one single developmental milestone.
And I like that you mentioned developmental milestone, because it really is. It's a skill that children have to develop and improve and practice. And if we pull their ability to go to school because of that, it's going to set them behind. It's going to impede their confidence. And I think we may see more harm than good. And I think it's important to have that conversation and make sure that as parents and as educators and as therapists, we educate and we advocate for our clients and our kiddos. And, we put the words out there that we want to see happen.
Yeah. I urge any lawmakers out there that might be listening to this also to just try to think about those students that might be in the gray area, when these things like constipation and big life changes or traumas come up in their lives, that there are going to be hiccups, and we can't just make things, black or white when it comes to this stuff.
Yep. Oh, you had an accident. You're kicked out of school. For how long? Forever? For the year? That's wild.
Yeah, it's craziness.
But also, if we have other lawmakers, I don't know, do we have a lot of lawmakers who listen to this podcast? If
Maybe
we do, we should also consult about crawling as well. Let's just slip that in there.
Tune into some more of our episodes. You need to learn something.
Well, thank you so much for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts on this, your perspective. If you have anything either way, like we said, we're fairly neutral, and we want to just make sure that we are advocating for the kiddos that we work with and our clients and the families who are listening, and they have to advocate all the time as well. So we would love to hear your thoughts. Either share them here in the comments or tag us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast and share your thoughts in your stories. Just, let's just have the conversation and be open and honest.
Yeah, having the conversation is it's important. It's the number one thing.
Yep. All right. With that, we'll plan on seeing you next week for another episode. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.